We need heroes. All of us do. In Dungeons & Dragons, players take on roles of archetypal heroes, but D&D doesn't just let you play the hero, it helps you to be the hero. Not like a dragon-killing hero, but a real-life hero conquering real-life demons, and I'll tell you how. As players participate in the hero's journey in the game, they experience that journey for themselves and receive the benefits of the journey outside of the game as well. If you don't get it yet, don't worry, we're here to help. Understanding the effects of role-playing are more relevant than ever with the massive growth of popularity experienced by games such as Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, and Call of Cthulhu. Tabletop role-playing games are now played by more than 50 million people worldwide, and Dungeons & Dragons is the foremost among them, having grown in popularity after being prominently featured in popular media such as Stranger Things and D&D podcasts like Critical Role. For the uninitiated, role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons utilize archetypal classes, backgrounds, and fantasy races that players can use to create and play characters in the game. Players of Dungeons & Dragons use the game's official player's handbook to create these characters and decide on the attributes that they will have in the game. Though there are many versions of the handbook, we will be analyzing the 5th edition player's handbook. The game's classes, races, and backgrounds heavily utilize archetypes to provide game mechanics and further the role-playing aspects of the game. For example, we have the Righteous Paladin, the Thieving Rogue, or the Chaotic Sorcerer. For races, we have Towering Goliaths, Mystical Genasi, and the Infernal Blooded Tieflings, among others. And these archetypes are easy to alter according to the player's needs. In the game, players actively try to role-play as their chosen character, so if they play as a rogue, they need to use that character's mindset to make decisions in the game. Every behavioral choice a player makes will be influenced by the decisions they previously made while creating their characters. But the question remains, how does playing these types of characters benefit you as a player? Let's look at the literature. Academic literature has a lot to say about the social and personal benefits that playing Dungeons & Dragons can have on players. In order to properly discuss this topic, we've divided up our literature review into 3 categories: how needs are met through D&D, how having those needs met affects social behavior outside the game, and how archetypes, which are central to D&D, affect the behavior of groups within society. Some sources will cross over between categories, so it's important to remember that these are major concepts being studied rather than different bodies of study. First, let's take a look at how playing D&D has the potential to fulfill basic needs in players' lives. Needs for healing and resolution in players are met in the use of Dungeons & Dragons for therapy. Through this, we've seen effective treatment for mental health issues like PTSD and social anxiety. This is similar to how, in the Pivotal Play study, D&D players were better able to cope with the death of a loved one after experiencing the death of in-game characters. Likewise, another study called Blessed Are the Legend Makers showed that players can improve their lives by rejecting antisocial ideas through play, which once again ties into D&D therapy through treating social anxiety. And of course, we have the study directly on needs met through role-playing games, which lends credence to the results of each of the other studies by showing that players often experience in-game events with similar effects on them to comparable real-life experiences. Moving along, the effects of tabletop games like Dungeons & Dragons have been shown to improve social behavior in players of the game. The most common thread found in the literature was how experiencing ethical decisions in-game leads to improved ability to perform moral reasoning in real life. This is the primary theme of imaginative role-playing as a medium for moral development. Dungeons & Dragons provides moral training, and is present throughout most of our sources. Blessed Are the Legend Makers adds to this by pointing out how tabletop role-playing experiences can help players break away from detrimental behaviors in their lives. We also see a fair amount of help through practice engaging socially at the table, as can be seen in D&D therapy, and scattered in small amounts through other sources like Pivotal Play and needs met through role-playing games. In fact, it's this emphasis on the fact that experiences from playing the game can influence real-life behavior that ties everything together in the literature. From D&D meeting life needs to tabletop role-playing improving social behavior, and also to our final category, how archetypes affect society at large. Archetypes have served as a major framework for role-playing games, but they are also seen in society outside of gaming. In our literature, we compare how Leaders and Heroes, Modern-Day Archetypes showcases the effects of storytelling archetypes and how we view them on society, with how the article Are Orcs Racist discusses the effects of societal archetypes on our storytelling games. The two set up a cyclical nature of thinking, where the ideas of the game and the real world both influence one another, producing a dynamic that makes the archetypal nature of games like Dungeons & Dragons even more powerful and important to understand. While the majority of literature speaks to how D&D can help people to overcome certain challenges in their lives, they don't attribute the method to the idea of living the hero's journey through the game. So, to demonstrate how Dungeons & Dragons players live the hero's journey, we will be analyzing the text of the Player's Handbook published by Wizards of the Coast as an official sourcebook for D&D. Specifically, we will be analyzing the sections that describe character classes and backgrounds, as they use archetypes to guide players through the hero's journey. The hero's journey, as proposed by Joseph Campbell, is a cyclical myth that repeats itself throughout all history and literature. The three major steps in the journey are the departure, the initiation, and the return. To illustrate this journey, let's follow a young woman named Sasha and her experience playing D&D for the first time. Sasha is 23 years old, works as a programmer at a tech company, and recently started playing Dungeons & Dragons after a friend of hers invited her to join a newly formed group. But Sasha is struggling. When she was 12, her parents began fighting with one another. Throughout her teenage years, Sasha felt neglected, while her parents were more concerned about their conflict than anything else, and Sasha has never been able to shake the effects of it. Sasha's departure begins with a call to adventure. This is her friend inviting her over to play D&D, which she has never done before. She is unsure of this new experience, but is excited to try. The instruction of a wise mentor is a key part of the departure. In Sasha's game, her mentors are her friend and the group's dungeon master, or DM. They help her to create her character, Elena, who is a strong and charismatic barbarian. The next step on the journey is crossing the threshold into the unknown. This partially happened already when Sasha agreed to participate in the adventure and created her character. Sasha is now ready to fully cross over the threshold and play the game with her friends, entering into the world of Dungeons & Dragons. Now, Sasha begins the next section of the hero's journey, the initiation. This is the bulk of the adventure for Sasha's and others' stories. During the course of initiation, Sasha is beginning to learn about the first benefit that helps us become heroes through playing D&D. This benefit is how playing D&D helps players via growth through externalization. This is the idea that you can take problems that you're facing and work through them with your character in the game itself. It allows a person to distance him or herself from a conflict without completely losing investment in it. It also lets the player circumvent obstacles that exist in real life, whether that be a lack or perceived lack of relevant skills, an imposing social or physical barrier, or simply fear. And, just as importantly, it allows the person to approach their pain in a setting surrounded by friends who can provide support. Sasha experienced severe neglect as a teenager. Sasha's character, Elena, was separated from her parents at about the same age. Elena takes up adventuring as a barbarian to seek them out. There's the call to adventure. Elena's feelings of abandonment let her serve as a proxy for Sasha's pain. Every choice Elena makes ultimately comes from Sasha, and so Elena resolving her issues allows Sasha to find resolution and personal strength as well. There's the initiation. In fact, this quote from the Barbarian section in the Player's Handbook illustrates just how helpful the experiences of Sasha's character, Elena, can be to her. Their courage in the face of danger makes barbarians perfectly suited for adventuring. Some barbarians miss the close-knit family structures of the tribe, but eventually find them replaced by the bonds formed among the members of their adventuring parties. Now, of course, even experiencing these powerful feelings at a distance is tough. But Sasha is in luck. She has a table of friends that she has made through this hobby. And this brings us to the second benefit. Sasha is learning to work together with other people. The Player's Handbook states that playing D&D is an exercise in collaborative creation. The Dungeon Master and the other players, though they vary in how much they know about her situation, all care about her and want her to be happy. When Sasha is having a hard time, they can lend their support in-game and in real life as well. Sometimes they'll put a pause on the game session when Sasha needs it. Sometimes they'll have their characters help Elena overcome challenges, and sometimes they'll just be there for Sasha, lending support the way that good friends do. The third benefit comes from experiencing success in the game, and that some of those successes can be taken home. Each class in Dungeons & Dragons has a different specialty that allows characters to excel at certain skills. For instance, rogues and rangers are famous for their stealth. Fighters and barbarians shine in combat. Certain spells are available only to wizards or to sorcerers. As characters progress through the game from level 1 to level 20, these skills grow and are added upon. A skill that a character is particularly adept at is referred to in the Player's Handbook as a proficiency. Every player has different proficiencies that are used in different situations. These proficiencies are what elevate characters to the status of extraordinary heroes. Perhaps D&D players cannot actually pick locks, fire arrows with stunning accuracy, or tame wild animals, but they do get to experience the thrill and satisfaction of competency vicariously through the lives of the heroes they play. One D&D player that we know described the experience as refreshing and relieving. She went on to say, "I tend to put myself in the character's shoes, so whenever my character succeeds at something, it feels like I have succeeded at that thing, and I have a boost of confidence." Let's go back to our example of Sasha. Say that Sasha experiences some level of social anxiety in real life. She wants to experience having strong conversational skills, so she makes sure that Elena has a high charisma stat in the game. With some help from her dungeon master, Elena is able to breeze through most social encounters. This success is very encouraging for Sasha, who over time becomes more chatty and relaxed at the table and elsewhere. It even makes her more confident in conversing with her parents. After all, she did it as Elena, so she can do it as Sasha too. Finally, we have the return. Eventually, the game sessions and the whole campaign come to an end. Along the way, Sasha has learned social skills and handled her trauma through the game. She goes and visits her now divorced parents, something that previously caused a lot of pain. But, like others who have walked the hero's journey, Sasha now has the wisdom and support from friends that she gained in her journey. She has become the hero, and she can now overcome her pain. Sasha's experience has given her newfound abilities that she can now share with other people and help them gain these abilities and new friends. After all, that is the real treasure you find when playing Dungeons & Dragons, the friends you make along the way. As corny as it may sound. Now, at the end, let's wrap up everything in a nice little package. We've explained that Dungeons & Dragons can be a powerful force for personal growth. We've assessed the influence of archetypes and the hero's journey found in academic literature, and how archetypes facilitate that journey. Lastly, we showed it in action through Sasha's experience. If you felt something listening to us explain Sasha's story to you, you've just experienced our point. Sasha isn't real. We made her as an archetype for someone who could be helped by D&D. And experiencing this story vicariously through Sasha has moved you in some way. Now imagine how much more powerful it can be when the same happens with you at the table. Thank you.